North Korea says the United States is on the verge of committing an act of war and that its reckless, provocative insanity will be met with merciless retaliation from Pyongyang.
North Korea is already condemning it, accusing the United States of provocative insanity, an act of war, and promising a decisive and merciless countermeasure if the U.S. supports the release of the film.
Peter, part of the movie was shot right here in our newsroom. Little did we know when we saw Seth Rogen walking around, he was about to set off an international incident.
This movie caused one of the greatest acts of corporate espionage and hacking in the modern world. Seth Rogen's The Interview is a movie that's famous not for what happened in the movie, but for the history that happened surrounding the movie. But before we get to the corporate Sony hack, I do have to lay the groundwork with what was going on in North Korea at the time. So let me paint you a picture. In December of 2011, the great leader himself, Kim Jong-il, had passed away. Now, Kim Jong-il died of a heart attack, but the people of North Korea had no idea that's why he died. The North Korean media said, and I quote, that Kim Jong-il died due to great mental and physical strain during a high-intensity field inspection. Yes, the great leader died because he was working so hard, not because he had a heart attack. Immediately after his death, North Korean leadership decided that they were going to have to pick a successor. And that successor would be the, quote, great successor known as Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un was about to become the leader of one of the most volatile military regimes left on the planet, and people back home had no idea what was going on. From the outside in, the world watched as the grand military funeral procession happened on TV. It was footage straight from the North Korean media of children and women wailing in the streets as a funeral procession and basically a motorcade of cars, one of which may have been carrying the great leader's body in order to lay him to rest. Honestly, the footage that you're watching of the funeral procession is some of the weirdest stuff you will ever see, and at its core ultimately shows how powerful brainwashing is. Meanwhile, foreign military officials went on high alert. Everyone else in the government was pretty much super worried because one of the only dictatorships left on Earth was changing hands to a new leader. Even worse than that, it was a leader that, for the most part, was pretty inexperienced in this whole leading a dictatorship thing. In fact, many analysts believe that Kim Jong-un may feel it necessary in the future to precipitate a crisis to prove his mettle to senior leaders. So basically, you know, cause a food shortage and then act like a really good leader. That's basically what they were fearing Kim Jong-un was gonna do, but there are plenty of other things that happened after that Kim Jong-un used to test his mettle as a leader and prove himself as the new regime holder. Stateside, completely unrelated to all of this, Seth Rogen, James Franco, and writer Evan Goldberg had already begun devising what eventually became The Interview script. Yes, that's right. This script began production before the death of Kim Jong-il. Using documentaries on North Korea, the Dennis Rodman trip, which happened after Kim Jong-il died, just so everyone knows, and pretty much other eyewitness accounts about the country, the entire crew crafted what was, to most outsiders' knowledge, North Korea. In reality, the script they made is kind of a satirical version of that country, but for all accounts, much of the weird stuff in The Interview about North Korea is stuff that you can watch Vice documentaries on that are real. So, Kim Jong-il died, The Interview was being written, and then they announced the movie.
What the fuck have you guys done to the world?
Oops, they did a big oopsie. So, North Korea didn't take too kindly to that, of course. So, North Korean officials publicly stated and responded to the movie, which is actually kind of rare, but here's what they had to say. The act of making and screening such a movie that portrays an attack on our top leadership is a most wanton act of terror and an act of war, and is absolutely intolerable. So that's a pretty scary statement to read coming out of North Korea. It sounds like they're gonna declare war on us because of a Seth Rogen, James Franco comedy. People seriously felt that these two guys were going to cause the end of the world and the start of World War III.
All this time for you.
It was a horrible experience,
Yeah.
yes. It's bad to be blamed for almost starting a war. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Seriously, this is all that people talked about for a couple weeks coming up to the release of the movie. People were starting to fear what might actually happen if North Korea is that upset about this movie. Seth and the rest of the crew actually ended up getting government security because of the controversial nature of this motion picture. Now, people that actually were watching North Korea and really studying this said to Seth Rogen and crew that, yeah, nothing was gonna happen, you guys are safe. They're basically blowing hot air at you. They're not gonna actually send some super assassins to kill you in your sleep. Then, unbeknownst to Seth and crew, the worst had happened. The studio responsible for funding the interview, Sony Pictures, got hacked. All of their embarrassing corporate emails leaked for the world to see. But before we actually talk about the hack and what happened to Sony Pictures and their embarrassing emails, I gotta tell you how you can protect your embarrassing emails with Dashlane. Dashlane is actually a service I've used for a while now, and I am super duper impressed with it. I love it. I can tell you, no holds barred, they're by far the best password manager around. I have tons of accounts and passwords online, and Dashlane pretty much keeps all of them. All I need to do is remember the Dashlane master password and I'm good to go. It stores payment details too, which speeds up the checkout process, which is super great for things like Amazon. And now I know where I spent my money, which is actually super important for someone like me, someone who's self-employed. Seriously, the digital receipts thing is a feature that I never knew I needed, and I'm so glad I had now. Like, it actually does make a lot really easy for me. Dashlane will actively make you more secure with its password health system. And Dashlane makes it super easy to update those passwords with new auto-generated super secure passwords, so that way your stuff never gets broken into. You really should be using Dashlane in this day and age. I can't see why you wouldn't. And today I'm gonna help you out. Go to www.dashlane.com/FPS. Head over there to try Dashlane Premium for 30 days. The first 200 users that go and use the code FPS at checkout will get 10% off their purchase of Dashlane Premium. Big thanks to Dashlane for sponsoring this video. I really do appreciate it, guys. It does help a lot. Seriously, once you guys use Dashlane, you won't want to go back. It's been a great experience.
Or as the North Korean state news agency put it, the provocative storyline is leading to, quote, an explosion of outrage and fury within our army and among the people.
Little did Seth and their company know that the interview became the catalyst for one of the scariest and most ridiculous hacks in corporate history. So, a group of hackers called the Guardians of Peace, which was never confirmed to be North Korea, by the way, but I'm just gonna go on a educational limb here and say, yeah, that was North Korea. But, okay, fine, whatever. The Guardians of Peace perpetrated a hack against Sony. So this cyber attack stole a lot of information. They stole an alleged 100 terabytes worth of personal information from pretty much every employee that worked at Sony Pictures. The Guardians of Peace had ended up airing literally all of the dirty laundry at the company. Everything. Passwords, emails, addresses, home addresses, the addresses of family, personal emails between executives. You name it, they got it. All of this dirty laundry that was in the public eye and all of these crazy things that were up in the air actually ended up leading Sony executives to get angry at each other and start being annoyed with what the other one said in the personal emails that were released. The demands for Guardians of Peace to stop releasing files on the company, Sony had to pull the plug on the interview. That's what they wanted. The Guardians of Peace said if they were to screen the interview at movies, that there would be acts of terror committed at screenings of the show. But before Sony could respond to any of this, film chains took it into their own hands to just cancel all of the screenings of the interview. They weren't having it. They didn't want something to happen at their movie theater. The interview was then put on hold and Guardians of Peace released the information anyway. And you know, part of me finds it really funny that they did, because we got a lot of great emails, like the emails between studio co-chair Amy Pascal and producer Scott Rudin. In these emails, Rudin badmouths Angelina Jolie to Pascal. They said, and I quote, "I'm not destroying my career over a minimally talented, spoiled brat who thought nothing of shoving this off her plate for 18 months so she could go direct a movie. I have no desire to be making a movie with her, or anybody that she runs, and that we don't. She's a camp event and a celebrity, and that's all, and the last thing anybody needs is to make a giant bomb with her that any fool could see coming. This is a pretty passionate email. We will end up being the laughing stock of our industry, and we will deserve it. Which is so clearly where this is headed that I cannot believe we are still wasting our time with it. Calling Angelina Jolie it. This man has some massive cojones. You've destroyed your relationships with half the town over how you've behaved on this movie. Now, Amy herself was even going to meet with the then president at the time. And in these emails, some choice things came to light about the president. Both Scott and Amy had made some jokes. Jokes about what movies you bring up to the African-American president in the room. You know, talk to him about things like 12 Years a Slave and Django Unchained. You know, because he's brown and likes basketball and fried chicken. Stuff that's great like that. Yeah, the emails were that bad. Now, the emails ended up, culminating in Amy leaving her position. Wow, wonder why. So she stepped down from her position as co-chair at Sony's Pictures. But one of the other emails that leaked of note is a really funny interaction that Amy had about the new Spider-Man movie. Now, this is about Amazing Spider-Man 2, you know, Electro, Itsy Bitsy Spider and Dubstep, all that stuff. So these emails that leaked about Spider-Man are not good, but boy did they put things in perspective. So Geek.com actually did a write-up on these and explained how the Dubstep Itsy Bitsy Spider thing didn't come from Pharrell Williams. It actually came from this other guy. This guy who was an executive at MTV. This executive, well, former executive, that's not what he does now. His name's Nick Shore. And you know, Nick has a unique job. In short, Nick's job is getting paid to be out of touch with millennials while attempting to appear in touch with millennials to people who aren't millennials. His job description reads like this, and it is something else. In his new role, Shore will be focused on guiding the development of entertainment and marketing content targeted at both millennial generation, for which he and McGrath are really familiar, and their successors, Generation Z, where yours truly is. And you know, that's pretty bad in and of itself, but the email might be the most painful thing, the most Hollywood thing you have ever heard. So in this email, Michael is just having some rando thoughts that he's sending to Amy. Hey Amy, just a couple rando thoughts from 35,000 feet LAX to JFK. A rising trend we see with millennials are the really extreme forms of experiential exercise, like Tough Mudder, a sort of filthy triathlon, the Color Run, and even things like hot power yoga, veganism, okay, etc. Millennials will often post NBD on their social media after doing it, as in no big deal. Also known as a humble brag. NBD and humble brag are two different things, but okay. Ellipses, wondering if Spidey could get into that in some way. He's super athletic, bendy, strong, intense, and it's all NBD to him, of course. EDM, electronic dance music, in parentheses, because let's be real who we're talking to here, is defining music for millennials. Not sure about that. Wondering if there's an EDM angle somewhere with Spidey. His movements are beautiful. Would be awesome with a killer DJ behind it. And there's an alternate world where there is a Spider-Man movie with a Skrillex soundtrack, and I don't know if I want to live in that world. Wow, this makes you feel old. Snapchat just launched a story functionality, which is sort of a day in the life of me told in a series of Snapchats that expire after 24 hours. It has a very VIP quality about it, since invitation only. So what VIP usually means. Getting invited into Spidey's Snapchat circle would be huge, very buzzworthy and cool. Also, on American Hustle, I was thinking, and this may be way too late for this. It would be awesome if we could get all those cool fashion brands to do a 70s styles collab. Urban Outfitters, Free People, American Apparel. The sort of thing leaning 70s already. Macklemore hitting it big with thrift. Not thrift shop. Gotta be trendy. Gotta shorten things down. Millennials, we're moving fast. Speedy. Can't say thrift shop. Too many syllables. Thrift's where it's at. Now, Amy's response to this email is, stop it. Just stop it. It was actually, love this. Before she forwarded the emails to her boss, Sony executive Michael Linton. Man, isn't it great just finding out how the sausage is made? The hack was actually pretty crippling for Sony at the end of the day. It impacted the film industry at large, considering how big Sony really is. The interview aired digitally on Christmas Eve, and, well, did anything happen? No. No one got hurt. Well, I mean, except for Steve Carell, his movie about Pyongyang, which sounded kind of interesting, got canned. New Regency was not going to have an interview situation on their hands, because who knows, maybe they also have very embarrassing emails. Hustler magazine, though, said they would stick it to the man by filming a porn parody. So, you know, just in case you wanted to know that. People really didn't want those Sony emails out, but once they were out for good. There was no way Sony was going to take that back. So, if you'd like to keep yourself safe online, remember to use Dashlane. Big thanks for the sponsor again, guys. Really appreciate. Keep up with me on Twitter and Instagram over on FPS Diesel. That's FPS Diesel everywhere. I also write now, so you can find my articles linked down below over on medium.com/FPS Diesel, or it's at FPS Diesel, either or. Lastly, hit the subscribe and bell so, you know, I can feed myself and pay the bills because the college debt, you know, all that stuff, the usual. But, you know, it's like, it's all NBD to me, you know, I'm just, you know, humble bragging. You know, it's just something we vegan millennials do.